Okay, so today we're going to talk about next steps in trying to do this challenge that we talked about last week. As you can see, I've been playing around with creating a fish because what are we going to have to do for this challenge? We're going to have for my particular entry, and you're going to have something different for yours. But I think one of the challenges may be modeling. You're going to have to model your final boss, and you're going to have to model your hero and anything that might go on along with him or her. I started out, I've been trying to think about it, and this is sort of a sketch I have, where you have this big fish, and he's kind of inspired by an Oscar fish. And these are kind of inspired by my Congo Tetras, which I still have 5 of them, as of last time I counted. Ran into some issues with them that neither myself nor the vendor have any clue as to what could have happened. Sometimes it just, stress or what. But so far, we're stable there. Anyway, back to this. So it's kind of the idea that I had was this big fish and the final boss and these little fish. And I'm thinking of using some Houdini particles in here maybe, to kind of give it a little flair. But this is kind of a nice program for working with this stuff. This is my favorite painting type program, is Revell, and this is Revell 6.1, which I think is the latest. And you can see what I'm trying to do here. So I decided that since I am very weak at modeling, I'd start with that, since that's kind of... Now this is one of the fish that I did. I will show you the one the one that we saw in cinema came from. But I want to show you a little trick here that I learned watching once. I think it was one of the Skillshare classes. Okay, so you get this into pretty high geometry, and I think we've got, let's divide it again, 3, 4. Okay, so this is the trick I learned. We have this fish now, and we did a Make Poly Mesh 3D. And the first thing I did, I got to subdivision 3, so now it's at a high res. I went in and I said, freeze subdivision levels. That's gonna... Now, on Dynamesh, I wanted it 24. So it's a lower subdivision. And make sure it's at 24. Okay. Now I'm going to hit Dynamesh. And notice it's very crude. But when we unfreeze this, notice it brings it back up to our subdivision level 3. This is a trick I learned in, like I said, in a Skillshare class. And it's very helpful because you're going to need even geometry in order to get your texturing to work. So I'm going to save this. Save as, and this was fish 3E. So let's let me show you. I'm going to save what I did in Cinema. So here's what I got in Cinema. Notice the scales are even for the most part. Obviously, I still have to do the fins, and I find what I had to do is mask the individual pieces out. Right now it's just the eyes and the body, but the fins are going to have to be masked to be, or have a separate selection from the eye and the body. And then, because you're going to need to, obviously you don't want to use scales for this part because fish don't have scales in their fins. But let me show you this. I'm going to close this and I'm going to save it. And I'm going to close Cinema. Yes, let's close. All right. Now, let's get my tool, the latest fish that I've been... Okay, this is fish 10. Now notice he's pretty well textured. He has... I also tried to do some polygroups with the fins and so on, and the mouth, which I'm not real thrilled with the mouth. And the other thing I want to point out is when you're working with Zbrush and trying to do these detailed things, using a tablet and a pen really helps because you can get much more detailed. You can do different pressures here. So let me decrease my draw size, and I'm going to change this brush to Damien Standard, or Damien Standard. I think that's what it's called. Wait a second. No, that's not it. There. This is your Damien Standard. And what I'm going to do here, this is a push-in kind of brush. So I'm going to try to push this in a little, make more of a mouth here. And I have symmetry on, very important. I have X symmetry on. And what that's going to allow is if I make something a mark, like I want to make these gills a bit deeper. See if I can make these a bit deeper here. It's going to do the same thing on both sides. So you're not going to have, you know, an unbalanced and uneven model. So now we have our model. And I am going to save next. Now this is very important. Notice in Save As, if you have, this was driving me nuts a little bit, so let me see if I can find it here. Is this in Preferences? Oh, come on. Looks like this is freezing up. What's going on here? It looks like it has... Oh, I know why. Because it thinks I'm saving as. So let me go here. And here's our Save As. I'm going to cancel that. Go back into Preferences. And there are preferences for... quick save, I think it is. No. No, oh, it's under miscellaneous. Last used export. And also UZ folders. If this is turned off, it's going to use the last used folder that you did. So it's not always going to put that in your Z export default file, so you're not clogging up your C drive. So, going back to this now, we have it saved. We want to put it into Cinema. You click on Go Z. And it's going to bring up Cinema. Now you can also do Go Z with Houdini. And as you can see, it's coming in. We have our oh, you know what? One important thing that, well, let me go back here to, I believe, no, this is, it did it in, sometimes Go Z will, there is no lower res. That's important, because what I found, once I did that little trick, it would try to import it as a lower res. So let me go over here and go back to Cinema. And this is pretty much the res we had. Okay. Now when you look at it and you display your garage shading lines, you can see it's pretty high res. And what I found, I'm going to have to bring up my other one. Could it be Fish 2? Yes. So we want this. We're going to do Control C. And we're going to do back here, Control V. Go. Now, let's have a look at this real quick. Notice that I have, and this is very important for this, I have, you can see this projection here. I made it cubic. So when we put this on here, notice it's kind of messed up. So what you have to do is change this projection to cubic. And notice now the fins are pretty, and you can make, maybe you want them a little bit smaller. Let's say 84%. And now you have scales that look okay. And then what you would do is you would do selections for the different parts. Actually, I would do it before. Select the, the areas that you don't want this to be on. Do an inverse and then put this on. And then do selections for the other things. What I found, and I have to look into it because it seemed weird, is if I just put this on and then went and did selections for the other part and assigned it to this, it didn't seem to like that. But what we ended up, again, this is where I am now with this, where I have the eyes, and of course the fins have to be a different texture. But, let's see, they changed it in the latest version of Redshift, where you have to do this to get the separate window. And let me, let's get this going. And there you go. That's somewhat of a fish. Does it need more work? Yeah. But, you know, for this particular challenge, I don't think it has to be perfect. I just want to look credible, or, you know, look somewhat like a fish. And again, let me show you where my inspirations are for this. And these are the Congo tetras. This is an example of an Oscar. And you'd never put them. Oscars they have big mouths. They need a huge tank. They will probably eat anything that can fit in said mouth. So you have to be careful. Now this is the textures I got. I downloaded. And that's the basis of the scales. So you can get different textures depending on what you're trying to do. And like I said, I kept it really simple, and you can do more. I basically made it my texture, stuck it into standard material and out, and used the box projection and matched it on when I put it on the model, so that we would have scales that made sense. And of course, I probably want to do more, add some normals and different things to make it a bit more realistic. But I was just trying to keep it real basic. What do we got here? I have no idea what this is. Let's see. There we go. Of course, this is using a default camera and no lights. But anyway, so what are the key points? Try to sketch out your idea. It doesn't have to be fancy, so mine was very simple. I would say go for focus on what you're weakest at first. The reason I'm saying that is you want to get that over with, and then you can pull the rest together. Now, you have to be careful, because I have run into this. I have run into a problem with different things doing these challenges, and I have gotten caught up and spent too much time on one thing. On the first challenge, it was making the gi for my character in Marvelous Designer. That was a challenge. The second time I did the challenge, I spent 90% of the time on my car model and 10% on everything else. And the other tip that I've seen thing I've noticed with these challenges is there's the main animation that they're looking for, like in this case, the David versus the Goliath. But it's really good. Most of the ones that get some traction, for lack of a better phrase, are those that have some secondary animation in them. Like, they'd have a car going through, let's say it's being chased, and then they may have other cars. Or the car's going through, and then there's other animation with maybe people firing at it or different things going on. But it's the ones that seem to be recognized are the ones that had not just the main animation, but some kind of secondary animation going on that made it a bit more interesting, visually interesting. So that's my thought in terms of having like a hero fish and a bunch of other little fish around doing something, is it'll make it a bit more visually interesting than just, you don't want just two items. I would think about a secondary animation, remembering the rules, which say that you have to have a a hero and a boss, and it should be very clear what the hero is in the video, in your what you create. So anyway, hopefully this has been some useful, and hopefully if you're playing with ZBrush, that tip I garnered from the class is going to be very helpful. And what I learned about trying to get the texturing to look halfway decent is something else that will be helpful to people. Anyway, so take care, and I will speak to you next time.